Welcome back to part 2 of our open discussion and thoughts on State of Decay 3. If you missed part 1, be sure to go check that out. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our new content. With that out of the way, let's pick up where our last episode left off. Kind of looks like she's definitely been through this, like she's
the ringer.
Yeah, she's been through the ringer. She's been in this for a while. Like she's dealt with zombies. Like she, and maybe she's just sick of it. Maybe she's just like, whatever. I don't care. It's time.
Come with me.
Yeah, like whatever happens. Who knows? And maybe that they're gonna kind of focus a story around that, where it's just like, she's done with everything. Like, let's move on. Let's talk about the way you just mentioned compounds and stuff a minute ago, and your group that you're with, like the community. That is a big issue that I've had with State of Decay, mostly 2. State of Decay 1, again, it was a newer game. They didn't have everything hammered out quite yet, so they were still kind of building upon everything within the game. But State of Decay 2, I kind of had an idea of what the community was going to be like, and they really kind of focused on that. If you watch the State of Decay 2 trailer, they have this like pan over where, you're like building a facility, like you're building your base, and things are happening, and there's a lot of movement, there's people walking around, people doing things, and I felt like in both games, your community and your base, even though like they try to focus on that, they don't focus on it like they should be doing. I feel like your community and your base should be more focused on than constantly just running around and looting, because that's 90% of what State of Decay is. Is it fun? To an extent. It does get a little boring after a while, but I definitely feel like they should focus on that community, whether it be more chatter and interaction with your community members, the ability to actually build a base rather than just saying, okay, here, you've got 4 square plots that you can place something down in, or you can, clean it up and then turn it into a bedroom, or, something like. I feel like maybe with the bases, they should do more of like a grid system where it's like, cool, you've got this much space, fill it with what you can, but be sure that you can move around within your base. Like, obviously, you don't want to put, everything so tight that you can't move around, and that I feel like that kind of leaves you with a little bit more of a creative aspect with it. I feel like a lot of survival games have that creativity, and I feel like State of Decay is one that doesn't have that. And do I think that State of Decay needs that creativity? Absolutely not. But I definitely feel like it's an added bonus to be able to personalize your compound and be like, this is me doing my thing within my world, to set myself apart. Because I looked at it was funny, like I had my base on my game, and then I look at your base that you have, like, because we both started out in the same spot, and I looked at what you had placed within your compound, and it was the exact same as what I had. So I was like, oh, okay, like I don't have to figure your base out.
I wish that you did, you kind of hit a lot of the points. Like, I definitely feel like there needs to be at least some sort of like more personalization there, because overall, you're right. Like, I started out day 1, you were like day 4, we had the exact same base. That's, it's like, come on, I get it, but at the same time, it's a little off-putting, to say the least. For as much personalization and kind of stuff like that that they kind of give you as far as your character goes, as far as like, oh, my character's proficient with mechanics and this, that, and the other, blah, blah. Like, to have a base that is just standard, nothing great, nothing crazy, it's a little off-putting.
Yeah, and as far as that goes too, kind of backing up with the base system and with your community system, something that I mentioned to you earlier, I feel like they need to kind of, like, whenever you're starting the game, I don't feel like you have your tutorial and then it immediately goes into like, you've got like a 4 or 5 person compound. I feel like watching the trailer kind of brings up something like really interesting in the fact that she is alone at a campfire. Do I think that, maybe you could start out with 2 people? Absolutely. I think that you should start out at like a small camp, and then as you progress, it moves into like, I've recruited some more people, the camp's just not working, we can't really like fortify a camp, so like let's move into like a house, and then cool, now I've got 10 people, let's move into a warehouse. Cool, now I've got 20 to 30 people, like we need to maybe take over a couple of houses and like really expand on from just having a compound or a small house. I feel like you should be able to take over chunks of a map and actually be able to kind of fortify off off. Like, think of The Walking Dead, where, like, I can't remember what season it was. It was
like, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like where Morgan had set up all those traps and he effectively had a safe area. He effectively had a safe zone. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, even whenever they move into that small town where they have like that big wooden barrier around, and they've got like guards posted and like they've got a gate, they like let people in and out and everything else. Like that whole kind of idea of being able to like slowly build an actual kind of like working town within itself, and then like, be able to designate your survivors to do specific tasks. And I feel like you should have more control over that rather than you walk in your base and they're just kind of wandering around, not really doing anything. I mean, you might have like a person climb up to the guard post, but it's like that's the only like level of immersion that you have.
Yeah, that's the extent of anything, of them doing anything.
Let's talk about the narrative aspect of State of Decay. So State of Decay 1 had a little bit, I'm not going to say a whole lot, like obviously State of Decay 2, other than the Heartland DLC, didn't really have a narrative focus whatsoever. I don't feel. They didn't have a story. State of Decay 1 had a bit of a story. You had like Coach talking, you had like the military like coming in and doing their thing. Even though you really didn't get to see too much of the action, it was kind of like it was implied that there was things going on. But I definitely feel like State of Decay 3 needs to have more of a focused narrative within their simulized world. And what I mean by that is there definitely needs to be story missions that progress along that give you more of a sense of the world and what's happening within the world. And it needs to be separated. State of Decay 1, if you guys go back and watch a lot of the like developer interviews and stuff, they're talking about this huge like simulated world where like anything can happen. They're talking about permadeath, and all other crazy things. And you're just like, wow. And then a lot of the simulized stuff that I feel like they were talking about isn't present in either of the games. But if they're still wanting to go with that simulized kind of world, then when it comes to story progression, I feel like they need to slow things down a bit and have designated parts of the game be specifically story. And then whenever that's happening, like the rest of the world kind of pauses, so that way you get this more of like a cinematic feeling for what you're doing, and you can kind of like really take in what's going on around you. Like a good example of that would be Final Fantasy 15, where you've got, a bunch of side missions, everything's happening, but whenever you do like a story specific quest, it's kind of it's more over the top and it's more narrative focused than the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good comparison. But I think that is definitely on the right track. I find it, for me, kind of what we were talking about with the compounds and the narrative and everything else, that kind of gives me an idea of, we do see the survivor on her own, and I think that kind of adds in almost a cool opportunity that they have within this game to add in another mode. And I feel like for the longest time, the only modes that have been in State of Decay has been just the quote unquote story. Then you have like wave defense and like how long can you survive, and then basically after that they just have kind of randomness. Really
kind of like a free play almost.
Yeah, kind of like a free play and stuff like that. But I think it kind of gives an opportunity to have something kind of nifty where you have, you're a single survivor, you're on your own. You can choose to either link up with other people or you can choose to stay on your own. I think it should maybe push you, if that's the aspect. I think maybe that should push you a little bit to link up with somebody else, or to link up within a crowd. But it's like you're not the leader. You know what I mean? And like that, I think that honestly, that in and of itself, that mode, or that could just be the entire narrative right there. But I'm just using that as an example to say, hey, that would be kind of cool if you had it, because we've never started out with a State of Decay video or a State of Decay game that is like that, where it's just you on your own, and then you're kind of seeing it from the other survivors aspect. Thank you for joining us on part 2 of our State of Decay miniseries. If you have any thoughts or questions, please comment down below. As always, join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Discord. Links are always in the description.
Until next time, this is Obi.
This is Sobi.
Signing out.
See you guys next time.